me. It's always been a dream to come and speak to this esteemed assembly. I really appreciate you having me. And we're going to start the talk by understanding that if, you haven't looked lately, your house is a total minefield. And just ask your kids. And we're here to discuss why, and we will do this as delicately as we can, because we're going to discuss what to do with those objects. Anybody know the great Zen philosopher Alan Watts? He said a universe of objects is objectionable. And note, however, how many words have their origins in the material things of life. Valuables, goods, acquisitions, householdings, personality, effects, furnishings, appointments, treasures, heirlooms. All of these are rooted in our language. So what we own materially is part of our language. You remember the comedian George Carlin, and he said that our stuff is important. You got to take care of your stuff. I can't do a George Carlin, but you got to have a place for your stuff, he said. Everybody does. A house is just a blank pile of stuff. So a house is an abode, and your stuff, therefore, abides there. I want to posit to you that value is generationally relative. And so for the first time in the history of the universe, as far as I know, there's two generations that are downsizing at the same time. So in my case, my mom is downsizing, and my children are downsizing, and I'm also downsizing, but I'm kind of smushed in the middle. So those of us who have downsized for our parents or who have already downsized for ourselves know that we can't, we're right in the middle of two generations. We can't give that stuff to this side of the generation. We can't give it to the children's side of the generation. So what do we do with that? I think what we're going to do is we'll go down my list of the top 10 objects both the market and your children do not want. And so what generally happens when I talk about the things that your kids don't want, people will come up to me afterwards and say, well, okay, but who do I sell them to in that case? But let me give you an example. So the Gen Xers and the millennials now are in control of 3/4 of the market. So anything that people spend money on, basically it'll be a Gen Xer or millennial who's actually purchasing. Therefore, if your Gen X and millennial children or relatives don't want those things, there is a very limited market. Remember, we said 3/4 of that market is theirs. So if they're not buying it, there's really no market for it. One of the top objects that people are always surprised about that folks don't want is our books. And people say to me, what the heck do I do with the books? Well, think about it. The younger generations don't necessarily want books, and they're not used to books. They're used to reading on screens. So books are a difficult thing to get rid of. As a matter of fact, I've had a bunch of clients say to me, I've got these books. What do I do with them? And actually, we've had John, for example, who's a professional photographer, go and shoot the entire library, and then do some wonderful collaging with the images of the covers, and then just donate the rest of the books. Strangely enough, the most valuable books market-wise are the weird ones. So for example, if you've got a library of rare Japanese island culture, for example, that will sell to a university, whereas your normal books, like we had when we came in here in that trolley, those normal books are not worth much. And $1, $2, something like this. Here's an example. This is a professor of mine, and he has a rare collection of cultural anthropology. His kids don't want it, but he was able to give that to university. Here's another professor of mine, and she collected books on Delft, China. And that's a good subject, that'll go. Here's another of the top 10 objects your kids don't want, and this is actually in my garage. So how do I know my son doesn't want these? But these are steamer trunks. And people say to me, they say, oh my gosh, we've got this steamer trunk. It's at least $18.90. Well, everybody's got 3, as I do. Another steamer trunk. sometimes, folks will hang out. This is another category of objects that nobody wants. Old electronics. And so old electronics also, there's an inverse relationship to this too, because people don't want armoires right now. Why? Because those deep TVs that used to go into the armoires, remember? When you get rid of the big TVs, you don't need the armoires anymore. So old electronics, this is mine. Nobody wants that. Another category of objects nobody wants, and I bet you all have a bunch of these. These are mine, by the way. These little dumb figurines. Really, very, very difficult. And this is perhaps one of the worst categories of objects to own. How many people know these Bradford exchange plates? And yes, they're just piled in those little tiny boxes in your mom's garage, for example. These are really difficult, and nobody wants these. In fact, I'm suggesting to you a Greek dinner party. One of those. Silver plate. Remember when your mom was married, everybody gave her silver plate. My mom was married in the 50s, and everybody gave her silver plate. Now, silver plate comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes, but you can recognize it as, say, EPNS, electroplated nickel silver on the bottom. Silver plate is almost impossible to get rid of, and we just don't entertain that way anymore. Silver soldered is another way of saying silver plate. Here again, silver plate, nasty silver plate. And then when people wrap silver plate, they figure, okay, let me just wrap it up in old dry cleaning bags, because for sure my grandkids are going to want the celery dish. It ends up looking like this after a while. Big, heavy, dark furniture, antique furniture like this that's heavily carved. And by the way, certain types of furniture are devastatingly difficult to even donate. This, for example, this is a sideboard. How many people use a sideboard today? A sideboard is one of those articles of furniture, a white elephant. Nobody has sideboards. And you can't do much with them. You can't, this, I guess she's attempting to make this into an entertainment center. But you got rid of yours? Carved furniture. This is mine. And carved and pretty furniture like this. My son, for example, says, I don't even want to see that when I walk in your house. Persian rugs. Now, if you've got millennial or Gen X children, their attitude is minimalism and Zen-like tranquility. So if you've got very, very bright carpets like this, it just won't go anywhere. So Persian rugs. Can you imagine that color in your daughter-in-law's house? No. And some of them are beautiful and very rare. This is a beautiful rug. We couldn't do anything with it. Okay, linens. Now, does your daughter-in-law, I'm going to ask you, does your daughter-in-law own an iron? Does she own an iron? Yeah. Maybe. My daughter-in-law does not own an iron, and she wouldn't iron linens. Linens are difficult, and most of us have cabinets and cabinets and cabinets of tablecloths, etc. The idea of entertaining is very different today. So if I go to visit my son who's 30 years old, he'll have bamboo plates next to the pizza box. This is silver-plated flatware, and silver-plated flatware is rather difficult to get rid of. Even sterling silver flatware, if it's pre-1930s, it's valuable. If it's post-1930s, it's very difficult. Why? Because the amount of silver content in silver, I'm talking sterling here, the amount of silver content is different. So right in the middle, 1930s is your demarcation time. So if it's earlier than 1930s, there's a heavier weight. There's more troy ounces in the sterling. So that when you say, well, Elizabeth, you're saying troy ounces, why should that matter? Sometimes you can melt these things down as opposed to selling, but whole services of sterling are very, very difficult to sell. This is German silver. German silver is a different quality, so it's 800 parts silver over 1,000 parts base metal. And that's also difficult to sell. Any kind of serving objects like this. So, you've got serving objects, really Fish forks? People, really, fish forks? Cake servers. You know, these sorts of things, they're just not even used anymore. It's so difficult to sell. Oh, and sets of glassware. Now, what do you do with your bar services and your sets? First of all, you know those champagne cups like that? Your kids don't want those. And if you say to them, like I said to my son, but you can use them for shrimp cocktail. Really, you can use them for sherbet. My son looked at me like, really, Mom, please? And he doesn't want the wine glasses. Why? Why are these wine glasses not desirable? Come on, guys, they're too small. They're just too small. You know, you can't get a decent slug of wine in there, can you really? You know I'm talking about these little wine glasses, too small. And most of us have whole bar services like this. Very difficult. Now, the worst thing you can try to foist upon your children is your formal china, especially the china that has the gold rim or the platinum rim, et cetera, et cetera. Because why? What won't they do? Dishwasher and microwave. You're absolutely right. Very difficult. This is mine. This is my formal china. My daughter-in-law did one of these, oh, come on, are you kidding? When she looked at that. And she does not have the style I have. Well, ask me, what's my style? It's early brothel. The other thing that your kids don't want is your family photos. And these are my family photos. You know, they really don't want the family photos. And the idea is, well, what do we do with these boxes and boxes? I've got 5 huge cardboard boxes. I'm the eldest of 5 children. So I have all these boxes of family photos. And the answer is, you have to digitalize these. If you digitalize these, and there are services to do that, if you digitalize them, you can spread them out to all of your relatives. But your kids don't want those boxes of paper. We call it paper ephemera. And that means playbills, love letters, old, anything paper. Not design. There's me with my grandmother's duck. There's me and my brother. There's me and Uncle Ernst. He was always so drunk. This is, you know, unbelievable stuff. Okay, so people say to me, you know, okay, you've just given us the bad news. How do you go about downsizing? And I was talking at our table, one of the questions when, I think you were saying, people approach her about Valverde, and they say, well, how do we start to downsize? So I'm going to give you my own method, which I call the 5 piles theory. Why I say 5 piles, it's counterintuitive. So we're going to start downsizing with the things that are most obviously the most valuable. So you start with your high rollers. Now, Fred, I do own these. I do own these. Fred is president of the French Club and also a Legion of Honor, a Knight, etc., and all things French. I love French posters, and these are huge. These posters are big. If I was downsizing, I'd start not necessarily by trying to sell these, but I would start by learning how to research my most valuable thing. When you start with your most valuable thing, you've got a universe of objects that you can actually do comparable sales to match. So you start with your valuable thing. You know, I have quite a few of these. And if I learned how to research these, I could pretty much learn how to research anything. And then I can pick the most highest, best use market for that. So that's what I mean about learning how to research. You're not necessarily, people say, well, can't I just sell it on eBay? No, eBay's your worst choice, usually, because eBay covers a whole universe of things. What you want to do when you start to think about selling something pretty valuable is you want to start to think about who are the 2 people that are going to fight over this one object. So you narrow your market down, 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 down. So that's why I say if you start by understanding how to research your high rollers, that's the best. And then you think about your donations. You know, the tax laws have changed now. So we're in the 2018 new tax laws. And your threshold for itemization has changed, as you guys probably all know. And so charitable contributions are going to be limited coming up this year as under the new tax law. It's not as advantageous to donate. However, there are still things that you should think about donating because, especially in Santa Barbara, certain things are worth more, even though you've got to adjust for your gross, you've got to adjust for your bracket, et cetera, et cetera. Even in the light of that, they're still worth more to donate. I'll give an example. English 18th century furniture. If you bought it in the 80s for $2,000 and you tried to sell it in Santa Barbara today, you could maybe sell it if you're lucky for $400. But when you donate, you can donate things by taking comparable sales across the most common and appropriate marketplace. So when I do a research appraisal for donation purposes and someone's got an 18th century piece of English furniture, we used to call it brown furniture, I will go to the most appropriate and common market. Where do you think that is? East Coast. So we can donate it for a value that is most appropriate to that market. So you'll actually turn out to be. So donation is something you should think about, even with this new tax law. Then what I do with my mom's stuff, for example, and I just downsized my mom's house. She'd been in a particular house in Chicago in that location for 62 years. It was major. And what we did was we made 5 boxes. And those boxes were symbolic. And in those boxes, John came with me, and we took pictures of everything in the household. So we had a box that was marked high rollers. We take a picture, put it in there, so we knew Mom's got this. It's pretty valuable. We'd have another box, and we'd have donations in that box. We take a picture, we put it in that box. Likewise, family jewels. Family jewels are the things that you don't want to live without. And my suggestion for family jewels is that you make in your computer or in a shoebox, you take pictures of the things that you want your kids or your grandkids to have. Now, you say, yes, Elizabeth, but you just started the lecture by saying there's so many things your kids don't want. Forget about that for now. Still make that shoebox, because who knows, in 10 years they may want it. And in that shoebox, you're going to have those things that are truly the family jewels, not jewelry, not necessarily just jewelry, but things that you want the kids to know about. Then you're going to say, how do we do that? 2 ways. And these 2 ways are going to help you in the case we were talking at our table of a disaster like we just went through here in Santa Barbara. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to get somebody who's really good with the camera. You're going to walk around your house, and each of these family jewels, the things that you really want your kids to know about, you're going to stand in front and you're going to say, this was my grandfather's clock. This is, he purchased it right before he left Scotland. You tell all you know about it, and you have someone video this. You go back again and you have someone do still photos. So in your shoebox or in that part of your computer where this is going to live, you're going to make note of those things that are most valuable to you in the light of your family. So there, even if you have a disaster, then you've got a file, you see? So it cuts both ways. Then I call this my keepers, and these are the things that you would keep no matter what. So the things that you think will work maybe in your new place, or the things that you really, really like. And I had the real difficult moment, because with my mom, who's 87 years old, I got rid of, she was moving from Chicago to New York. I got rid of everything that I thought I could replace when we got her to New York. What did she say when we moved her into her new place in New York, into the new nursing home? What did she say? Where's my TV tray? Where's my toaster? Where's my coffee machine? All the things that I thought we could replace at the other side, she wanted those things. She didn't necessarily want her great stuff, you see? Then your next pile is going to be what I call the piddly smalls. Now, see, we went in a different order. We started with the best. We went to donations. We started going down in the value scheme of things to the very end. Most people start with this. They start putting this stuff in the garage for a garage sale or a estate sale. They say, well, this is a $5 item, this is a $20 item, and they put this in the garage. In one corner of the garage, they amass a big pile of small, piddly smalls. What happens? What happens is you'll be sleeping one night, you've just filled up half of your garage, and you'll be sleeping one night, and you'll wake up and you'll say, My aunt's teddy bear is out there. And you'll go out there at 3 in the morning and you'll pull the teddy bear. Okay, now it's 5 in the morning. You say, my aunt's porcelain chicken is out there. You get up and you pull that in. By the end of 2 weeks, the stuff is right back in the house. And so this is why you don't start with the small stuff. What do you do with the small stuff? I'll tell you what you do. You call somebody like Steve's Delivery Service, he's a 2-man little organization with 1 truck. And you say, Steve, I want you to come to my house Sunday at 4 o'clock. You spend Friday, Saturday, and most of Sunday getting all the small stuff together. You put it in boxes. Steve comes at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock on Sunday. You say, here they are. Just bring it to, say, Assistance League or Catholic Charities or something. But, let it go, because it's the small stuff that really occupies psychic space. The smaller the object, the more psychic space it takes up in your head, believe me. The 10 valuable habits of successful downsizers. I address this to my new friend over here. The 10 valuable habits are always counterintuitive as well. Okay, if you're moving and you're lightening your load, let this mantra sit in your head that objects don't define your worth. And successful downsizers make a plan. And they make a plan in stages. This weekend we're going to do this. And then they always reward themselves with a nice dinner or a glass of wine, etc., when that is achieved. Successful downsizers, this is part of the downsizing experience that John and I have been involved in. Successful downsizers will make a visual picture in their head of what they want when they get where they're going. And sometimes even use a computer system to do that. More downsizing hints. We always have at the very back pocket, when I'm helping somebody downsize, we always have a charity that has a truck and guys. So if we can't get rid of something, we've got that charity with the truck and guys. Also remember that when you're in a new place, one thing that people tend to forget, when you're in a new place, the quality of light changes. And so what looked good in one place doesn't necessarily look great in the other place, because that light changes. There's more blue, there's more yellow. In this case, I'm trying to figure out where the art's going to go. Here again, this is the kind of truck. This is my mom's house, and you see what we did. We found this really successful. This is my mom's house. Those are my mom's boxes. And you'll see on those boxes, we actually took pictures of what was in the box and taped them to the outside of the box. That was a super successful thing, because she was able to identify what she wanted. And this again, here's my mom's house in Chicago. We actually had in our back pocket, here again, guys and a truck, that at the last minute we wanted stuff to go, they came and got it. More stuff to be downsized. Here's a close-up of what we did. This is the contents of my mom's office, for example. You open all the drawers and you shoot in all the drawers, etc. This is also really helpful if you've got a damage or loss claim for your insurance company. And I'm not suggesting that you pull everything out of every drawer, but just shoot a picture. Open that closet, open that drawer, shoot a picture. One thing that I think is very important, this is the guy leaving my mom's house with a big glass tabletop. One thing that's really important is that you should have a maybe pile when you downsize. People say, well, it's black or white thinking it's either going or it's staying. But I suggest you could have a maybe pile, and that maybe pile could actually be a storage locker, short-term storage locker. Yeah, short-term. I emphasize short-term. Isn't it funny? People say, well, of course, your house, you don't have a storage locker. I've had a storage locker for 10 years at $300 a month. So here I am standing in front of you talking. So, yeah. So here we are. Well, the thing is, I keep on hoping, right, that my son's going to want this stuff. More downsizing, and a record collector, a lithograph collector. Here's my storage locker keys. I was telling you about my storage locker. Take advantage of the IRS rules for charitable contribution. Have a maybe pile. Do not visit the items that you would like to donate after you've had a glass of wine in the evening. And then, in conclusion, I'd like to say that successful downsizers never ask their spouse's opinion on anything. And then, you know, in conclusion, as I say, taste in generations is shape-shifting at this moment. And it's a really interesting moment in time when the ritual of dining, for example, is no longer with us, you see, with the next 2 generations. And it may come again, but it may not. I will suggest to you that if you can get someone to do a video and you can get somebody to talk through their narrative about an object, that's the value in the object, is the narrative that the object gives to your next generation. And I thank you. We'll take some questions, but thank you very much for having me.